What is the douchiest thing you've seen someone do? Friend asked me to help him and his girlfriend move into their new apartment together the day after Christmas. I didn't want to, but he's a friend, so why not make it work? Everybody else bailed, but I spent the day helping him. The next week at their housewarming New Year's Eve party they decided to invite a dozen people, but we weren't one of them. Was working Christmas at my old pub. Christmas party from a nearby office is in. Guy gets the next round in, pays with a 50. I take out his £25 change and he tells me, loudly, to keep it as a tip. I'm absolutely blown away and thank him. And after his colleagues all get their drinks and say how nice he is, he walks back to the bar for his pint and silently gestures for me to hand him his money back. Instant sadness. I decided to ruin his day by saying loud enough for his friends to hear, "If you really want to take that tip back, here you go, sir." What an absolute bastard. At Christmas. I have never heard of someone so freaking cheap they would ask for a tip back, let alone with a goddamn hand gesture. Nothing too crazy, but I was third in line at a gas station to pay when the customer at the register drops a $5 bill or whatever out of his pocket when he goes to pay. The douche in front of me puts his foot on the bill so when the first guy leaves, he can clean up. So when the first guy turns to leave I say, "Hey man, you dropped some cash." The look on the second guy's face as he moves his foot to reveal the money was wonderful. I felt like a hero that day. Back when I was delivering pizza I dropped a wad of cash, well over $100 of mostly the store's money, and this little old lady chased me back to my car to return it. I would have been fricked if some douche found it first. Worked in the gun department of a large sporting goods store. Guy comes in and wants to check out a shotgun we have on sale. I pull one off of the wall where they are locked up and behind the counter. Hand him the shotgun and he looks it over. Says he wants it, so I tell him I am going to check in the back to see if there is one in a box. There wasn't, so I come out and ask him if he was cool taking the one he had checked out. He immediately gets an attitude and questions me why I don't have one in the box in the back. I tell him that they just happen to have all been put out as displays, but they are rarely handled and never toyed with. He asks for my manager, who I happily call over. She starts dealing with a guy who demands that model of shotgun but in the box. I am forced to call around to all of the other stores in our area and ask if they have the gun in a box. None do, but I tell the closest store to just put one back in the box and place it in the back for the guy. I go back to my manager and the customer and inform them that I have found one in the box and the guy can go pick it up. Guy is not having that. He wants it delivered to this store. My manager ends up calling him the store manager, who wasn't currently at the store, to deal with this sucker. When the store manager gets there and informs the customer we cannot just have them send the gun over because of firearm laws, the guy proceeds to get in the store manager's face and tell him that he is an ex-cop. Guy left and never got his gun. If we had ended up getting it for him I would have refused the sale because I wasn't comfortable selling him a firearm, which we were allowed to do. Guy was probably an ex-cop for a reason. During college we had to give a short presentation of our paper to the 200+ person class. This presenter happened to be a student with a very noticeable stutter. The two girls sitting in front of me started to imitate him in a very cruel way, laughing all the while, and that too, openly enough for the student to see them. Finally someone loud whispered for them to shut the frick up, and they did. This can relate to this on so many levels, no matter what it is. If it's speaking or going to the gym, mockery and gatekeeping absolutely frick people's confidence. But that person telling those girls to shut the frick up, heroes like that are what the world needs. I used to work in an English teaching center on Hong Kong Island in 2012. Cut a long story short, one of my young students was a passenger involved in the dreadful Lama ferry collision that left 39 dead and 92 injured. She was actually on the ferry that sunk with her father, but the pair miraculously survived. Her dad had come in to drop her off to class the week after and told me the story while showing me the dressings on his leg wounds where he had sustained deep gashes trying to get him and his daughter out. He was a pleasant middle-aged guy with literally no reason to lie. Towards the end of the retelling he showed me 2 books in that the girl had borrowed from our library that had been in her bag during the incident. They had clearly been heavily water damaged. I naturally took them and told him that was no issue problem. Later on in the day I relayed the story to my boss. talking about the sheer coincidence and relief that the girl was okay and simply told him about the water damaged books. They weren't particularly expensive, Oxford Reading Tree, so I expected him to naturally accept it. It was a week later when my administrator told me that the girl wouldn't be attending classes anymore. I was a little bit miffed at this, as the last exchange was very positive. I later found out that my aunt of an ex-boss had gotten my administrator to call up the parent, while I was out of the center, demanding compensation for the damaged books. Naturally, the parent was enraged by this and cancelled all further classes, losing what was previously a long-term student. My brother and I never knew our father. Our half-sister, who we met as adults, long story, set up a trip for all of us to reunite. My brother and his family, my sister and her family and I all took off work, traveled 1,000 miles, and rented a place to meet our dad for the first time as adults for a week on Father's Day. We all get together and talk and share and bond. Aunts, uncles, cousins, etc. The whole time we are there. Dear old dad is quiet the whole time. We think maybe he's shy or not fully into this whole scenario yet and let it slide. So near the end of the week we go on a boat with one of my sister's friends for about an hour. We invite dad but he says no, he's not into the boat thing. Whatever. When we come back he's livid that we left him for that hour, when it's supposed to be a Father's Day get together. He throws a huge fit and ends the trip on a real crappy note, arguing with everyone and getting crazy. We spent so much time, money and energy putting this together. He can't say a positive word about it, but when we leave for an hour he flips out. If you've ever seen Talladega Nights, the character of Ricky Bobby's dad really reminds us of him. Also coincidentally from North Carolina, Will Ferrell's parents are from the same small town. When something is going well, he has to torpedo it so no one can be happy. This old lady was checking to see if her ball pen would work. She tried test writing on the shirt of the girl in line ahead of her. That's when you test your pen by writing on her face. I remember a thread in our I Am Verismuch shown a Facebook screenshot. In the picture, a woman was trying to connect to her smart son by reading books on advanced physics. She updated a status saying that she was starting to understand quantum, space, neutrons, etc. Her son replied the post by simply saying that the things you read are just the most basic concept of physics. I don't even care to talk about it. If you want to learn, try harder. To which the poor mother just replied, okay, dear, I'll learn more. I'm a foreigner who rarely applied the word douchebag in real life, but that post just got me saying what a douche. She sounds like a sweet lady to try and get into something as dire as advanced physics in her free time just to connect a bit more with her d-bag son. This lady parked right outside of a gas station, threw her trash on the ground outside of her car, then went inside and stole 2 bags of Chex Mix. Then I'm guessing she consumed them while driving to the next gas station. Rinse and repeat. Saw this guy run a red light and almost hit an old man on the crosswalk. He stops his car to yell at the old man for getting in his way. The old man gave him the finger. This guy gets out of his car and starts squaring up. It is 5 PM on a busy road and his car is blocking 2 lanes. After 15 seconds of yelling at this old guy he decides it was enough and gets back to his car and peels out. Doesn't have time to wait for the red light but had all the time in the world to fight an old man in the middle of the street. That's certified douche. In high school my best friend and I won tickets to a sneak preview of Superbad. The theater was super packed and some promo guy came out with a cardboard box of swag, handed some stuff out and set it down and walked away. This lady from the front row grabbed the whole box and sat down with it in her lap while the whole theater booed her and she left. I wonder what it takes for a person to think that's an alright thing to do. This really douchy husband of my wife's friend, at a dinner ordered heated cognac. After claiming it wasn't warm enough for his refined taste, loudly so everyone could hear, he swirled it above a candle on the table to heat. Not that douchy, but everything about his screams I'm a tool and even this stood out. Oh man, that's the kind of thing that makes me turn my head 180 degrees away from someone. Back when the classic NES was being sold, we had a rare opportunity to get one as they were only selling 2 consoles. The catch? Wait outside of Target at 4 in the morning. We get there and we end up being the second person in line behind this woman and her husband. She turned around and asked us, "Hey, you also here for the NES?" To which I said yeah. It's so hard to get these things, so I'm pretty stoked I get to buy one. She just smiled at me and said, well hopefully everyone will. About 2 hours later an employee comes out and tells us, okay, we're going one person at a time, so lady and her husband go in first. 5 minutes later they're carrying the only 2 consoles. She looks at me and just said, yeah, we did separate transactions. Maybe next time you'll be lucky. Never got her name. But if she ends up reading this, frick you and your husband for being such crappy people. At the very least she could have told you so you didn't waste your time. Fill up a water bottle with their pee and throw the opened pee bottle over and into a huge crowd of people at a concert. It was very hot too. People probably believed it was water at first. I forgot about this before my last response, but the teenager who stole a purse during church, if that weren't bad enough, the woman it belonged to only showed up to tell people her daughter was dying. So if they wanted to say goodbye to their friend, they had about 3 hours before the little girl was expected to pass. Pre-cell phone era, showing up at the church was the only way to reach your neighbors quickly on a Sunday. When she realized her purse was missing, the poor mother broke down sobbing. She didn't have enough gas to get back to the hospital. Fortunately, someone pressed some cash into her hand, but even as a kid, it stuck with me. Adding insult to injury, the father of the dead child ended up doing the legal work to allow the thief to get treatment instead of prison time for another offense. He's a good man, but dang. Wow, that's a forgiving father. Couple weeks ago, went to the store with my so. He pulled into the parking spot well between the lines. Guy parked next to him was right on the line. As we're getting out of the car the guy comes out the store and says to us, got all that room, even though he's the one on the line. Boyfriend responds, learn how to park next time, and we walk in the store. Come back out and the guy has scraped our car with his door. I've been in that situation. Stay at the car till he leaves. Doesn't matter if he knows it or not, I bet he won't pursue a confrontation. Worked at a festival next to a funnel cake booth. Nice dude drops a 50 for the next 10 people in line to each get a free cake. 2 people take their free cakes gratefully, but the third is a middle-aged bee with a sour face. She wants all of the remaining 8 funnel cakes for herself alone. The dude in the booth told her no and wouldn't even give her one if she bought it. But for real, the fact she even tried is douchy as frick. Way to go, dude in the booth. A customer doing whatever he could to bring a poor cashier down to tears and then had the nerve to smirk because he made a cashier cry. Some dude came up to me at a party, introduced himself and asked who I was and what I did. Halfway through my first sentence he cut me off to tell me he makes millions of dollars off his vape company. Not true. He then asked if I want to buy any vape juice, and when I said no he got angry and moved on to the next person. I would have audibly announced, as he walks away from me, to have good luck with that scam, bro. I'm sure somebody will help you out. Not the Douchiest, but it's up there. I used to work at a very blue collar bar quite a few years ago. One night this guy, probably mid-30s dressed in a suit, comes in that no one had ever seen before. Bar was always full of regulars. Night starts out for him normal enough, but he's drinking quite a bit, buying men and ladies drinks and racking up a nice tab. It was karaoke night, so he's up there dancing and singing with random people. As the night progresses we witness this guy kissing on a couple random girls. Mind you, this isn't a hookup bar, but whatever, it's happened before. Fast forward about 6 hours later and the bar is about to close, so we hand this guy his $350 plus bar tab. He starts acting awkward about it and then tells us he doesn't have his wallet on him and he can't pay. We ask him if he can call someone, but he says he can't call home because his wife, ding dong, douche radar increasing, would know he was out at a bar all night and he can't tell her how much the bill is. We tell him he has 3 options: call his wife, call a friend, or we'll call the cops. Guy starts going back and forth between being belligerent and not. We finally decide to call the cops and somehow get him to sit down and wait. After a few minutes he must have realized he's fricked, so he makes a run for it, but doesn't get far before attacking the 60-plus-year-old bar manager outside. I run out and pull the guy away and he starts throwing punches at me. I wrestle him down and hold him there until the cops come and haul him away. Next day I'm sitting back at work and I see this very pregnant lady waddling into the bar. 2 little kids in tow. Says she's there to pay her husband's tab from the night before. She was the sweetest girl. Very apologetic. Gave a huge tip but you could see she was just torn apart. Broke my heart. I wanted to tell her more of her husband's actions the night before but I didn't. She probably already knew he was a douche. TLDR. Married guy gets drunk at bar. Kisses random women. Runs up tab that he can't pay. Starts a fight with 2 employees. Gets hauled to jail. Then his pregnant wife comes in the next day with 2 toddlers in tow to pay off his $350 bar tab. I once had to pick my then husband up at a strip club. Best part, the stripper on the runway and I were both about 6 months pregnant. I was taking my lunch break outside at my old job, mall. A couple is walking up to the door, wife with a double stroller, husband looking at his phone. He opens a single door for himself, instead of hitting the giant button that would open both doors so his wife and children could easily enter the building. She asks for help. He says nothing, still looking at his phone and lets the door slam in her face. Definitely not the absolute Douchiest thing, but I still get pee thinking about it. He'll miss it when it's gone. My ex-best friend cheated on her boyfriend of 2 years and after she told him, he forgave because he just is that good of a guy. She broke up with him anyways and then proceeded to lead him on while dating other people. One night after her new guy wasn't answering the phone, she went and picked his ex up. While they were in the car, the new guy calls and she takes her ex back and drops him back where she picked him up. We stopped being friends because of the way she treated him. A married ex-co-worker who had a child would show me all the B he talked to on some weird dating apps. He also dumped money into cam girls to the point where he asked me for money for food. He has an $800 truck payment and a second kid on the way. No college education. He'd only say that he talked to the girls on the dating apps, but would never do anything. I mean, I believe that part because he looks like Gru and me. Being combined. No one likes you, Billy. You're in the army aren't you? LOL, you're describing like every 5th dude I work with. We were on holiday in the Dominican and had decided to do a bit of snorkeling with a group from the hotel. The instructor guide gave us a really interesting talk about the coral reef and its importance to the ocean. He also made a point of saying how endangered it was and that we shouldn't touch it whilst we were swimming. Of course, less than 15 minutes in, I saw one of the group dive down, snap a piece of it off and put it in his pocket. Most obnoxious thing I've ever seen. A guy I met started whistling at our server. Not just normal whistling but the loud whistling people do when they put their fingers in their mouth. I asked him why he did that and he replied, chicks love it when I whistle at them. You'd be surprised how much it works to get me laid. It's totally douchy but hey, whatever works. I hate this guy. I had a buddy do this to a bartender at a crowded bar in Nashville. The bartender looked at him and said, "Don't ever whistle at me again." She then proceeded to serve everyone in the bar except for him. As his friends we decided to stay at that bar for hours so he had to sit there and learn his lesson. It was great. I used to work in an office with a guy who would run and tell the management about every single little thing people did or said. Any offhand remark and he would run squealing to the managers about it. The worst part was he acted like your friend to lull you into a false sense of security. Currently work in an office like this. Telling one certain person something is like telling the entire office. Not even anything interesting either. Mentioned one time I ripped the arm of my shirt to her and that day I had multiple people asking about my shirt incident. I don't get why people act like that. So I was at a visitation viewing for a death in the family. My uncle had just passed. My cousin, his daughter, was about 6 months pregnant at the time. She was walking over to the chair beside her father's casket. Her crappy boyfriend noticed and quickly walked over, just as she was about to sit down, and took the chair. He pretended like he didn't even notice she was there, so my poor cousin had to squat on the floor beside him, upset because she had just lost her father. Guy didn't even bat an eye. He locked eyes with me when he stole her spot and I just shook my head. Didn't faze him. Luckily they are no longer together. Anyway, TLDR. Guy stole a chair from his pregnant girlfriend at her father's funeral. One of the douchiest things I've read on this thread so far. Wife and I had a couple over for dinner. I cooked a fairly complex meal. Drinks, beer, dessert. Right as they walked in they said they only had an hour because they had another dinner thing to get to after this one. Dang. I got annoyed at them just reading this. Most recently, it's the douchebag driving a black Mustang that revs the frick out of his engine through residential areas. Every morning, every evening, and sometimes at ungodly hours on the weekends. It's audible for blocks. I'm convinced he's a student because this crap only started around August-September when the fall semester started, and I live very near two campuses. My mate did one kickboxing session and we went out that weekend and he was trying to start fights and bragging about his one session. Shame he didn't get his head knocked off, I wouldn't have helped him out. Went to a house party and some dude had all of 2 beers before he tried to fight every guy, or frick every girl. He yelled at everyone for looking at him. Took offense at every word spoken around him. My buddy and I grabbed him and told him to cool his crap. If he calmed the frick down, I'd get him some food and a ride home. He somewhat agrees. As I stand up, my buddy calls down basement stairs and asks if I needed a beer. I was halfway through the sentence, yeah man. Thanks, before he clocked me in the side of the head. He thought we were talking crap about him somehow. I turn around and tap him in the mouth. He falls over and starts screaming that I assaulted him. Someone call the cops, blah blah. He ended up running out the front door with a busted mouth. Literally an hour later he's on Facebook blasting everyone and me for bullying him. He got called out pretty freaking quick. The best thing is that this wasn't a 17-year-old at a house party. He's nearly 30. Biggest douche I've ever met. Call me a jerk, but I think that some people do need a tap in the mouth. Good on you. My girlfriend's brother live streams himself working out in his bedroom on Facebook, occasionally stopping to look at the camera, flex and give himself a nod of approval. Yes, he does these kind of things a lot. My cousin used to post videos of himself dancing to rap music shirtless in his bedroom. He's in his 30s with a kid he's not allowed to see, and now he's in prison for breaking into cars and houses while he was high. This clump of teenage boys was walking down the street, taking up the entire narrow sidewalk by walking in a clump. Whenever someone coming in the opposite direction didn't step off the sidewalk and instead stayed in their lane, this one kid in the group would literally body check them off the sidewalk into traffic. And these weren't fellow teenage boys he was knocking off the sidewalk either. Not that that would make it okay, but I could perhaps see how he got there as some sort of intra-group fight for dominance. It was like office workers heading home carrying groceries. 3 teenagers did this to me when I was riding home on my bike path, so I snatched a hat off one of their heads and tossed it into a stream. A guy hit on me, and within 30 seconds mentioned his salary. Thank God my friend was in the bathroom. I was bailed out quickly. As a person who makes $2 million a minute, this annoys me. I was in a bar where I am a regular. I am married. I was talking to a woman I know at a bar who is also married. Her husband was somewhere around the bar at the time. A lounge lizard kind of guy who's at this place a lot came over and introduced himself, and managed to, within 30 seconds, work it into the conversation that I'm married and he is not. Lounge lizard, a ladies' man that frequents night spots where drinks are served. Maybe part of the live music set, but usually the lizard is at the bar chatting up rich women. Most often seen in a suit that was a fashion statement in the 80s. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.